What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture, and today we are getting into an in-depth discussing why, yes, labels matter when it comes to cameo appearances, first appearances, full appearances, and this topic of conversation that has been so prevalent in this hobby for decades now. Will it ever end? I don't know, but you know that I love discussing these hot topics. Before we get into the video, though, please, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, take the time to do so. And I have to take just a few seconds to let you know about A1 Comics, my local shop, because it is A1 Wednesday, and they have their IG Instagram live sales tonight at 5 p.m. Their information is below. If you're not following them on Instagram yet, please go give them a follow. They go for 3 hours tonight, people. 3 hours. Their live sales are absolute madness. They also go live on IG every Friday as well, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you guys are on Twitch, they are on Twitch every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific as well. Go check out A1 Comics on Instagram. Their website is below as well, a-1comics.com. Now, let's get into the video. I'm going to bring up the CBSI article, and we're going to not go through the whole article. I'm just going to pinpoint the key element. There we go. We have it right there. All right, check this out, guys. I'm going to go all the way down here. Basically, he's saying here, if you guys didn't watch the video, he's basically saying, I don't really care about cameos myself. I value books when there's a new character. I value books because, for example, like Avengers 196, I value that more than 195 because he's on the cover and he's part of the whole story. These things matter. Now, a cameo might be fun, but I'm not going to value it more than a cover and he's in the total story. And I talked about this in the video. When we say value, guys, we're not talking about monetary value. We're talking about what we value in the book. Why do we value the book? Because it's a good story, because you like the artist, because you like the character. All these things are value, right? It's not monetary value. But these types of values, because of the character, because of the writer, the art, these types of values that we find in the book are correlated to how the market then values them monetarily, right? There's a connection there. You know, it's just like a nice piece of art. We might want to buy the art because we enjoy the art, but if that mentality of enjoying that art so much is widespread, it's going to add a monetary value to it because so many people want it. That's supply and demand. Why do we value iPhones? Do we value iPhones because because they cost more? No, we value them because of what the phone is to us and what it provides to us, right? And because that value is so high, the cost is going to increase. I know it's a little bit different, but that's my point. My point is there's other values in these books, and he's giving all these examples of why sometimes we want to value a book that has a new character that's in the whole story and maybe on the cover rather than they're just showing up on the back panel of the page. And this is why in Dollar Bin, this is what I was trying to talk about. This is what's relevant about this article. It's not because he wrote it 4 years ago and it's outdated. This is what's relevant about this article. Straight to the point, guys. And I'll get into some of the things that he says here. If there's a new character coming out and or there's a character that's already been out and you're new to comics, right? Say you're new to comics and you started reading the new Venom series, right? And you wanted Venom's first appearance. You're like, I love this character. I want to know about his first appearance. And you go to a comic book store and say $2.99 is considered his first appearance, and $300 is considered his second appearance. Because he technically showed up at $2.99 first, right? Back page, boom, there he is, word bubbles. Multiple panels and a full back page. You see his face and full body. Do you think that collector would value that more than actually having the first book that he showed up in for the whole book. Personally, I would value 300 more just because of what Venom means to that book. But here's another example I used in my video, okay? If we're not using the term cameo, and we're just using first appearance as a term to the first time a character shows up and we see their face and they talk or whatever. It's a first appearance, period. No cameo, no brief, no full, no nothing like that, okay? There's just one way, it's cut and dry on how we label the first appearance. It's the first time that we see them, right? So that means, technically, Marvel Spotlight 32 is the first appearance of Spider-Woman. She's on the cover and she's the main character in the whole book. Nova #1. He's on the cover, first appearance, and he's in the whole book, right? There's many other characters that have first appearances where maybe they're not on the cover, but they're in the whole book. And then you look at Hulk 180 or Amazing Spider-Man 299, and we call those first appearance of Venom and Wolverine. Would we value those at the same level just because we get Wolverine on a quarter-page panel in the back of the book, just because we get Venom on the back page of the book of 299? Would we value those? And I'm not talking about monetary value. We're setting monetary value aside for a minute. As collectors that want the first appearance of characters, would we value those at the same level that we value seeing a character for the first time, either on a cover and they're in the entire book, or they're in the entire book? And that's what this guy was saying here in this article. I do. I want to know the difference. I want to know if I'm getting this character for the first time for a quarter panel or for 15 pages on the book. That's what he was saying. That's why it's extremely relevant today still, guys. And this is what he says. I firmly believe we need a better system of categorizing early appearances that is accurate, specific, and transparent. Calling a first appearance of a character a first appearance when it's only a panel or two isn't cutting it anymore. By any logical definition, that's a cameo and should be listed as such. You could call it a first appearance all day, that's fine, but just add the word cameo. It needs to be there too. And he brought up the textbook definition of cameo right here, where he says cameo in short means a brief appearance or role. Okay, what does brief mean? Lasting only a short period of time. By definition, a cameo is the exact same thing that many first appearances boil down to, but we need to differentiate brief versus full. Because then, and this is how I talk about the chicken or the egg, what comes first. How we value these books affects the market. How we value these books should affect the monetary value on the market, not the label itself. The label shouldn't automatically value itself. And what I mean by this is this. For example, Key Collector Comics is labeling Amazing Spider-Man 42 as Mary Jane's first full appearance. Although, and I said this in my video when I did this the other day, she only appears in a back panel and you finally see her face, and industry standard and precedent says that it's her third cameo appearance. Are we supposed to value that book more now monetarily just because Key Collector says it's her first full, right? So now that means because they're deciding to go against, multiple decades of precedent, does that mean that monetary value of that book should automatically go up? Because, well, Key Collector says it's a full appearance, so that means it's worth more. No, it shouldn't be like that, because regardless of the label, we most likely will value her showing up in a book for the whole book for the first time, right? Just like ASM 300 is more valuable than ASM 299. Just like ASM 181 is more valuable, or excuse me, Hulk 181 is more valuable than Hulk 180. It's not because there was a label that was set, calling it this or calling it that, and we went and used our purchasing power based on a label. No, we used our purchasing power based on how we intrinsically value these books in the first place. Who's this hot new character, Wolverine? Do we want to spend more money on a book where he's on the cover and in the whole book? Or do we want to spend more money where he's on the last panel? Does this make sense? From that, this is why we need consistency and transparency, though. If we know as an industry and as collectors that we value certain things more than others, okay, meaning seeing a new character in a whole entire story of a book rather than one panel, we need to have the labels defining them as such, because the labels and the inherent value, and again, not monetary value, but how we value what's inside of the books, should correlate. Okay? Now I'm going to repeat myself. The intrinsic value, not monetary value, but what we value for what's inside of the book or the attributes of the book, should correlate with the labels given. And they should correlate consistently. But what I'm trying to say is this. We proved as collectors, before we had CGC, before we had even Overstreet, before we had Key Collector and Go Collect and all these things, right? We spoke with our purchasing power on what we valued in the book. And we use Hulk 180 and 181 as an example. We valued Hulk 181 because the new character Wolverine was shown in full. He was on the cover and he was the main antagonist in the whole book. If we value this new character showing up in a last panel more than a full story of the character, 180 without Overstreet and Key Collector and CGC, 180 through the decades would have had a higher value. So when we started evolving these definitions, guys, because back then they said Hulk 180 was the first appearance of Wolverine. We didn't care. We valued that the character was in the story fully, more than partially. You get what I'm saying? Even when we labeled Hulk 180 as the first appearance of Wolverine, we valued Hulk 181 more. But labels evolved. Labels evolved and they evolved and they evolved. So now it makes sense, because when new books come out, we have 40 to 50 plus years of precedent saying collectors want to know if a character is in the entire book, if it's their first cover appearance, or if it's just a cameo brief appearance. We want to know that because we value those things intrinsically. And what we value intrinsically is how we are, it relates directly to how we're going to spend our money. If we know a new character is coming out named Virus, and we're waiting not for a label, but for a full appearance in a book, regardless of label, we're going to speak with our money, and that book is going to become more valuable naturally without any labels involved. But we sit and we look to the labels. We look to the labels to prepare us how we should speak with our money. Does that make sense? So if we know that we value intrinsically a book that has a new character for the first time throughout the book more than just a couple of panels, but you have somebody like Key Collector or Comic Book Realm saying, no, this is their first full appearance, we're going to speak with our money and pay more money for that. And then we're going to get the book and say, oh, shoot, they're only in 2 panels, though. How is this a full? Well, because Key Collector says so, so I guess it is. And then it distorts how we spend our purchasing power. Because then you have flippers that, and sellers and speculators that say, Key Collector Comics said so, it must be true. So now I'm going to hike this, I'm going to set this price at a higher price, and I'm going to state it as the first full appearance. Well, the collectors spend that money, and then they get the book, and then they say, ASM 299 is a cameo of Venom. Hulk 180 is a cameo of Wolverine. This only has 2 or 3 panels of this character. Why isn't it called a cameo? Or vice versa. So I hope that kind of summed it up, everyone. I'm going to get to some comments right now because this is why we need transparency. All right. So let's see. Strange Blade, organic sales over a period of time judges value based on what people are willing to pay on a consistent basis. Absolutely true. If you value the character's story as meaning to you, then yet full matters more. Sometimes cameos, okay, this is a great point. Sometimes cameos go for more than the full appearances based on cover. And I talked about that in my video this morning. It's a novelty thing with cameos, unfortunately. And here's the thing, and this is what this guy in the CBSI article was stating. If the labels are consistent and transparent, and we know that a cameo is a cameo, and we know what to expect with the cameo, right? And we know a full is a full, and we know what to expect with a full. We can still say, well, I value the cameo more. And then because we value the cameo more for some reason, it's going to drive up the monetary value. And then it's done organically, though. You see what I'm saying? And I use this as an example. The Bishop, what is it? Uncanny X-Men 282 and 283. Bishop's first cameo appearance is also his first cover appearance, but it's still a cameo in the book. Based on precedent and industry standard, you can have a first cover appearance be the same book as a first cameo appearance because in the book, you're only in a few panels. And then the next issue, he's on the cover again, but it's his first full appearance. That cameo book usually goes for more money than the full, but it has to do with him being on the cover. There's value in a first cover appearance. And that's okay because it's naturally done. It's organic. Strange Blade says, the dilemma is first appearance. Wouldn't first full story do the same effect for labels as first full appearance? Because the controversy is centered around the word appearance. Okay, look, and here's the thing, Strange Blade. You're right. This is where we need to get past this, because if we don't get past the actual words, we're never going to get anywhere. We need to stop nitpicking at the words. We could call it first. We can make names. We can make up names. We can throw random letters together and make up names. It doesn't matter what we call it. It doesn't matter if we call say we get rid of the cameo, which isn't going to happen at this point. Say we get rid of the term cameo. And the first time somebody shows up on a page in a book, even if it's one panel, let's just call out their first appearance, right? And then say the next book they show up in the whole book in they're part of the whole story. Say we called out their first full story, but second appearance. I don't care. It's still clear, right? The labels and the definitions are still clear. If a first appearance, regardless if they're in one page or whatnot, is considered a first appearance period, and you call their first story, where they're in the whole book, a first full story, it still defines them as to what they are. We can differentiate the two, and then we can value which one we want based on accurate descriptions. It really doesn't matter the terms that we use as long as we understand them. It's like learning a language. Somebody can speak Mandarin to me and I'm not going to understand them because I don't speak it. But it doesn't mean that if I learn that language, we'd be on the same page. It's about learning the language, learning the labels, and sticking with them. If you label something one thing, it has to be clear. And if you label something else, that has to be clear too. And they have to be distinguishable between each other. And that's the bottom line. But here's the thing, Strange Blade. We have labels already set. We do. And even though they're not concrete now, they are more concrete now than they've ever been. And that's why, look, we're not going to sit at a round table, guys, and say, well, why don't we call the the first full appearance. Why don't we get rid of the word appearance? Because that's what people are getting confused on. Let's just call it a first story, first full story. Personally, it's not gonna happen. We're not gonna change that now. I don't see that happening. Why? Because we spent the last 30 years trying to figure out what the proper labels are, and we are stuck with cameo appearance versus full appearance. We're stuck with it. We are. That's my opinion. I don't think it's going anywhere. It's evolved so much to where it's more concrete now in understanding these definitions than it's ever been in the history of comic books. Varangian, he says, personally, I don't care about the term cameo, but it's not going away. And ironically, I read that right after the statement that I said. Exactly. At this point, it's not going away. So what do we need to do? We need to say, so what does it mean? What does it mean? And we need to know concretely what it means. What is the definition? It's not going anywhere. We're stuck with it. Absolutely. And it needs to be addressed. Okay, now Strange Blade says Hulk 180 is the first appearance of Wolverine in a comic book story, although it's a cameo on the last panel. You can't change that Wolverine's first appearance is a cameo. Exactly. And that's what Scott Whitman in that article was saying. It's still a first appearance. Just add cameo in there. It's his first appearance in a cameo. It's his first cameo appearance. And it's that simple. A lot of newbies are getting ripped off and leave the hobby because of it. Labels need to be coherent. Varangian, thank you. And this Mega Road, believe me, I'm not trying to coddle new collectors. I tell new collectors all the time, or I don't care how long you've been collecting. I tell them all the time, you need to do your due diligence. If you're getting ripped off, you're like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? Like, you got to learn your lessons. You got to do your research. But still, why can't we be a better community, a better industry by creating labels that perpetuate transparency, right? Because look, although we want new collectors and hobbyists to do their own due diligence, why can't we go out of the way to educate them at the same time? And that's where Varangian, I feel like, yes, exactly. Labels need to be coherent, consistent, and transparent in order to help not only new collectors, but the health of the hobby and the industry in general across the board.